Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is the 2 p.m, the afternoon show, and despite it being an international break, we have absolutely loads of news to bring you this afternoon, so stay tuned, stay with us. First of all, a huge transfer boost for Eric Ten Hag and Manchester United, as it looks like Christopher Vivell is here to stay. He's signed a new contract until February at least, and there's some details coming out about whether this could become a permanent appointment for Manchester United, and all the details on that, a little bit about who he's signed in the past and how important he is for our recruitment and how important he's been this summer as well. Also some news coming out around Eric Ten Hag being backed by INEOS, being backed by everyone within INEOS, and he's got the backing for now, but obviously it is a result-based business. How quick would Manchester United make that change? Some information coming out around Eric Ten Hag and his future. Also some we've already got the player. Also some information coming out about Kone, our midfield prospect that we signed this summer, that was actually down to Christopher Vivell as well, and how likely it is that he can make the first team and how quickly he can do that. Manchester United resting a lot of their hopes on this young player that they've brought in this summer. A lot of expectation for him. Also slight news on Casemiro and the Saudi Arabia interest, lack of interest, and what the plan is with him, and also just some more news around INEOS and how they are running the club as well going into this season. But loads to get through and a lot to talk about. Thank you for tuning in. Obviously the results so far this season have not been good enough, but there is some positive news coming out in terms of this transfer boost for Eric Ten Hag, even potentially a future manager, and for Manchester United, because Christopher Vivell is very highly rated. And I was only just talking a couple of days ago just to my friends about this, about how much I feel like he's already had an influence on Manchester United and how much I would have liked him to stay, and it looks like he is staying. So everyone get down in the comments your thoughts about that, and also going to talk about what his track record is and what he can actually bring to Manchester United, because Kone is the first of many. He apparently, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've gone and watched him, because I've not watched any full 90 minutes that he's played, but apparently, he's going to be a huge prospect and someone who Manchester United really think can influence the first team in the future, and they're putting a lot of investment into this kid. And that is through Christopher Vivell and his connections and how good he is at scouting. He's scouted young players before they've got any hype whatsoever, and they've gone on to become some of the best players, in Europe. So this is really exciting for Manchester United, who want to build on the youth that has been so good for the club in the past and has treated us so nicely recently. Garnacho was a find that we brought in, obviously from Atletico Madrid, into the academy. He's come out, he's done really well. We want to keep building this, and we've got so many more young talents coming through, but we want to be able to go and, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, we don't want to go and buy Mbappe. We want to find the next Mbappe and bring them through. And that seems to be INEOS's plan and what their plan is for the future. Obviously, had to invest heavily on Lenny Yoro, because INEOS haven't been here for that long, but hopefully in future we won't have to go and spend £60 million on an 18-year-old centre-back. We'll actually have that centre-back coming up through our ranks, and that is what the plan is, and that's the plan in keeping Christopher Vivell as well. But it's coming in from the Manchester Evening News, just to get clarification on this story, that Christopher Vivell will stay on as Manchester United's interim director of recruitment for the January transfer window, after playing a key role in a successful summer transfer window for the club. Vivell has signed a contract until February and will remain in his role until then, with the likelihood he takes up this position on a permanent basis. Very likely that Christopher Vivell will be Manchester United's director of recruitment. Currently the interim director of recruitment. Comes with huge status, comes with a huge history. His talent ID is absolutely elite. For me, Kone is just the start of it. If anybody actually knows about his past and the clubs he's worked for, you'll know the names that he's gone and picked. He's basically a recruitment expert around the youth, and that is exactly what Manchester United are trying to tap into. So, the lad that we brought in from Palace, that's coming through in the youth system, I think some of them are yet to be completely finalised, but they will be completely transferred for Manchester United in the summer transfer window. Obi Martin that we've brought in from Arsenal, Christopher Vivell had a huge hand in that. There's other players as well that we've gone and got this summer, but specifically, I can't quite remember his name. Someone in the chat will know, the guy that we the guy that we signed from Crystal Palace, who seems like a really good prospect, Chudo Obi-Martin, who we've signed from Arsenal, who Arsenal were gutted to lose, and he's one of the best up-and-coming strikers in that age group that has been touted to potentially become a third striker for Manchester United this season if he progresses the way that the club see him doing. And there's also been a few other deals. Obviously, the Kone deal is an absolutely massive one as well. Christopher Vivell has had a huge part to play in terms of the youth that we've brought in this summer. Obviously, we've had the main transfer window of Yoro, who is only 18, but obviously a senior player. Yoro, Ugarte, still 23 years old, still a young player. I think Delit's still only 24 or 25, which is crazy to think about, considering how long it feels like he's been here and he's been around the block. And the senior transfer window has been great, but we've also done really well in terms of bringing youth players in that are super exciting for the future. And Kone is one that they're massively touting, and I know Vivell was absolutely huge in that one, and Obi-Martin as well, that a lot of people are excited about. So this is something to be really excited about. And also, I mean, it's good that we're doing that, but with him there, it means we'll keep doing that, and we'll keep having an expert there who can go and look at these talents, because it's all right going getting, a top goal scorer in England for Arsenal like Obi-Martin, which was it was really hard to get his signature, by the way. There were so many clubs lining up to try and get him, and he's a top talent, but it's all right scouting that. It's English football. Going scouting Kone from Mali, I think it was, where he was, like that is expert scouting. And if he comes off to be the player that a lot of people think he's going to be, that is an absolutely huge coup from Christopher Vivell. So it is super, super exciting that he is signing, hopefully on a permanent basis, but at least until February. Also, he signed Haaland as a kid for Salzburg from Molde when he was there, got Sesko, Upamecano, Adeyemi whilst at Salzburg, and he's brilliant at identifying top talents at a young age, which is exactly what Manchester United is built off and exactly what we want to do. So absolutely buzzing with that one. It's some really good news to kind of, midway through the week, we're on a Wednesday, everyone's like, international breaks. I mean, some people might be happy it's the international break because of how poor United were, but, the dust is starting to settle over the Liverpool result a little bit. You want some sort of positivity, and for me, this is massively positive because right now, Manchester United aren't in the best state, but in the future, with the names that we're signing at the ages that they are, we really are kind of securing ourselves for the future. You'll obviously need to get senior signings. You'll obviously need tweaks. You'll obviously need to keep investing. But the amount of young talent that we have at the club and we're slowly developing is really exciting, and it's only going to get better if Christopher Vivell does stay. So super, super happy about that as well. Got a super chat in from Rail Carl Brown Amory saying, Beth, how about our players start winning us games? I hear about Ten Hag, but none of our players who lose the ball and don't take our changes. A bit of a change of subject there from Ray Carl Brown Amory, but the fact of the matter is Ten Hag's system was terrible in the Liverpool game, but that also combined with, Ten Hag can't control how a player can't pass the ball. If anyone's watched that clip back of Casemiro when I think it was, Kobbie Mainoo passed it into Bruno passes it back to Casemiro, he's got acres of space, no one's really around him, and he just completely gives it back to a Liverpool player in such a compromising position. They break on us, we're 1-0 down in a really crucial point in the game. So despite Erik Ten Hag's system being super exposing for our midfield and not doing us any favours in defensive transitions, he also can't help the fact that when the players don't pass the ball properly, when we make loose, sloppy passes, when players start to panic. Ultimately, I do think the manager has to take responsibility, but Erik Ten Hag is choosing to put Casemiro in that starting 11, I get it, but he also has no other option. We should have invested quicker into our midfield this summer, and that is a mistake I think that we did make, but hopefully with Ugarte coming in, that will improve, but it's really, really frustrating. Ronan says, who's Vivell? Ronan, where have you been? Where have you been? Vivell was a huge recruitment by INEOS, and, interim director of recruitment, had a hand in, I've just spoken about it, so rewind, because I don't want to, keep repeating the same thing, but it's absolutely huge for Manchester United in terms of recruitment for the youth. So rewind if you want to hear more about Christopher Vivell, but he looks like he's going to be the permanent director of recruitment at Manchester United, which is super exciting. Grace Sheridan says, isn't the fidget spinner Anthony our own Mbappe? Here's a hot take for you, and you know, people will, oh God, we've had so many rumours about the United stand, you know, people make up that were paid by SEG, which is absolutely not true. People make up, you know, that were on certain players' payrolls, again, absolutely not true. I'm just going to say my own honest opinion. Here's one for you. I actually think people are writing Anthony off too quick. Like, I'm not saying he's Mbappe because he's absolutely far from it. And he needs to massively, massively, massively improve. It's not been good enough so far his time at the club. But I think people are writing him off too quick. I think people are acting as if we've currently got, you know, prime Mbappe and Neymar on our wings. Like, our attack has been super poor for quite a while now. Like, it's not been great. Ahmad's really been kind of the only shining light. Hoyland last season looked decent, and in terms of the lack of service he was given. Garnacho had really good spells. Rashford's not been good for a long time now. But Anthony, despite how poor he was last season, and he was poor, there's been glimpses. He's only 24. There's been glimpses where I say, do you know what? I've not completely written him off. You know, with Ajax, he was a really good prospect and a lot of people are excited to bring him in. We never was worth the amount of money that we paid for him. But I do still think there is a player there. I really do. I just think Erik Ten Hag's kind of, obviously, he's gone right down in the pecking order. He will get opportunities this season. Europa League, I think, is a big one for Anthony. He needs to prove why he should be at the club. And I don't know if he'll ever prove the 80 million price tag, which obviously isn't his fault. But he needs to show his worth and why we should keep him, because I think this is such a make or break season for Anthony and he will get opportunity. He hasn't had it yet, but, you know, he has scored against some big teams. Liverpool, crucial goal in that game. I'm talking about the FA Cup last season. You know, Barcelona, crucial goal in that game when they came to Old Trafford. He scored against City before, he scored against Arsenal. You know, he has been a big game player for us in certain games, and I do think there is a player there deep down, and I do think people have overdone the criticism on him. Obviously deserve criticism, but I think people have, like, you know, I feel like with United, with the fan base, it's so extreme. Oh, you know, like, they'll go from put a player on some massive pedestal, like, remember when people were comparing Rashford to Mbappe? Or it's like, you are rubbish, like they're not even a championship player. There is an in-between. Anthony hasn't been as good as what he should have been, and he needs to do better. And I understand criticism on previous performances, but he's got his head down. He said he's working hard. You know, when he came, this is really such a glimpse, but when he came on in that Brighton game, like, the first thing he did was make a run into the box and actually cross the ball with his right foot. That is a slight improvement. It's only slight, but it's a good mentality to have to kind of work on what you've been criticised for, and that's what he said he's going to do. People take the mick saying, you know, when you hear the name Anthony, you'll associate with goals and assists. People will take the mick, and when you say a statement like that, you've got to back it up. And I'm hoping when he gets the opportunity this season, we will see something, because, to be honest, we need it. You know, Rashford hasn't been Rashford for so long now, and it's like we're still waiting for that player to come back. Garnacho, still, people forget he's only 19, and you know, you can't look to him to just be the answer. Ahmad looks great. Ahmad does look great, but he's obviously still, you know, kind of warming up, and he's still a young player that you know, you've got to be patient with, but he does look really good. With Sancho going, we do need Anthony to step up. So, yeah, that's my hot take. I do think there's a player in there, and I do hope he gets certain opportunities this season, and I hope when he does, he proves it. Well, he will get them opportunities because we've got so many games, but I hope he proves it anyway. That was kind of went off topic, but that's the news on Christopher Vivell. A huge transfer boost for Manchester United. Also, what I read earlier, which I'm literally just bringing it in as news, apparently Vivell was pivotal for the sacking of Graham Potter at Chelsea and was pushing for Nagelsmann to be his replacement, according to Christian Folk. Also, apparently at Newcastle, Ashworth was a big fan of Nagelsmann as well. So obviously I don't think Ten Hag's going anywhere, and we're going to move on to the fact that INEOS are backing Ten Hag. But there is that slight connection that maybe if, you know, INEOS did decide to make a decision on Erik Ten Hag, that Nagelsmann would have big fans behind the scenes in Vivell and with Dan Ashworth. So that was a really kind of interesting little bit of information that I did see circulating and I read up on online, that, you know, both Vivell and Dan Ashworth apparently have been big fans of Nagelsmann in the past. Erik Ten Hag, though, is currently got the backing of INEOS and the team behind the scenes that INEOS have assembled. You know, the Avengers, where they have the Infinity Stones, that's what it felt like. First 3 games of the season, feels like a few of them stones have gone. But, you know, we have got the team behind the scenes, and, you know, we are going in the right direction, and we are building the right way behind the scenes. Whether Erik Ten Hag is that guy or not, people have differing opinions. Where I'm at on the Erik Ten Hag thing right now, before I do read out this news regarding INEOS' stance on Erik Ten Hag, I'm at the point, I was very, 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 very frustrated after the Liverpool game. If you watch the fans forum, you would have seen. I mean, I came into here and, you know, I always say we should genuinely have like cameras in the studio for when we come in after a game, just to kind of watch it back. I was going, you guys would never see it on camera because obviously Mark does the instant reaction and I have time to calm down. I was not happy. I was not happy with Ten Hag. I was not happy with the team. I was going in. Calmed down a little bit, got to the fans forum. I still was quite harsh. And I feel like most United fans would have been because it was an unacceptable performance. But the more I've had time to think about it and kind of gather my thoughts and kind of, you know, when you have that, you know, the devil on the shoulder and then the angel on the shoulder and you're kind of talking to yourself about it. You know, even when I'm driving to work, when I'm driving to the shop, when I'm at the gym, I'm thinking about it. And people call me a sado, but it's just my life. Like Manchester United is my life. And my thought process behind it is, I was so adamantly pushing for Ten Hag to get a chance under INEOS. At the end of last season, I thought the FA Cup win was brilliant. Like nobody thought we would win that game. Nobody. I did predict a 2-1 win in my vlog, to be fair, before the game, but I was just kind of riding off vibes. I think everybody in the right mind thought City was going to win that. So I thought that was a huge achievement. But also, I wanted Erik Ten Hag to be given an opportunity under INEOS and under the new structure. And now, despite how poor we've been in the first 3 games and how critical I am of Erik Ten Hag for that, and I think his system, he needs to change or else it's not going to end well for him. That is my personal opinion. And I do think adjustments need to be made. I said to myself, I said, Beth, you said at the end of last season that Ten Hag needs to be given a chance under the new structure. Well, now there's nowhere to hide. He's been given Dan Ashworth, he's been given Omar Barada, obviously Jason Wilcox, Jean-Claude Blanc. You know, you've got the new coaches in, Rennie Harker, Ruud van Nistelrooy, the new goalkeeper coach. He's been stacked with backing. You know, he's had money spent in the transfer window. People will say we needed a left back, we needed another midfielder. Maybe we didn't sign the right players at the right times. We should have had Ugarte in earlier. But the fact of the matter is he has been backed. So there is now nowhere to hide. But you can't say after 3 games, oh, it's time to get someone else in. If you wanted him to be given a chance under INEOS, I think he's got to at least be given till Christmas to kind of assess where he's at. I think at least. You know, you've got to wait for his signings to kind of get settled in. You've got to see what he does over the next period of games when players are up to fitness. And I'm not making excuses, but you at least have to give him the opportunity. So I will be closely monitoring Erik Ten Hag and I will be closely monitoring the way we play up until Christmas. And then I think I'll make more of a defined decision on it. But you've got to give him this opportunity. You can't just say, I'm going to sack him at the first hurdle. And it was a big hurdle because Brighton and Liverpool were both poor. To be fair, I thought Brighton wasn't awful. The first half, I'm not going to go back into it. I don't think Brighton was a disaster. Liverpool was a disaster. So that's my thought process in terms of Erik Ten Hag. I want to give him a bit of time because that's what I said I was going to do at the end of the at the end of the season last season after the FA Cup, and I want to stick by that. And it seems like INEOS want to stick by their decision as well, as it's coming out from Chris Wheeler in his recent article that one of the main reasons that Ten Hag kept his job was because INEOS recognised it was unfair to judge the 54-year-old when the infrastructure around him was deemed to be flawed, which is a lot of what you guys were saying in the community. It was what I was saying. That's what most of the Ten Hag inners were saying. He needs the structure around him. And I think we've got to give him time under that structure, and INEOS have recognised that too. Sir Jim Ratcliffe did INEOS. He did create INEOS. Sir Jim Ratcliffe did interviews speaking about how the structure's got to be right behind the scenes, etc., etc. It then goes on to say that no one at United is panicking yet. The view is that they haven't kept Ten Hag and built a new system around him just to wield the axe at the first sign of trouble. Exactly like I was just saying. Equally, however, there is an acceptance that poor results will not be allowed to continue indefinitely. He will be given an opportunity under INEOS. Dan Ashworth's come out, spoken about this. People say, oh, it was before the Liverpool game. It doesn't matter. They're not just going to change after one result, no matter how bad it is. Omar Barada spoke out about how Ten Hag is their guy. Dan Ashworth has. We've already spoken about this. By the way, how refreshing was it to actually get clarity from the club, and for people who are in powerful positions at the club to come out and speak to us directly and actually appear to know what they're talking about and be so coherent and be so direct with the fans. That was great to see. And, you know, it does feel like the club is on the right path despite of the results. Behind the scenes anyway, with Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth, they talk really well, and I am really positive about them two being in charge of, you know, really important roles at Manchester United. But so they're not just going to sack him at the first sign of trouble, is what they're saying. They are going to give him that opportunity, and I feel like most of us who wanted Ten Hag to stay owe that too. But obviously, patience is a virtue, and Manchester United fans are becoming impatient. And where I think Erik Ten Hag will start to shorten his time even further is with these post-match comments that, you know, talking about Harry Potter, talking about Ugarte not being able to start for God knows how long, not just banging on about the trophies he's won. You know, he needs to hold himself accountable, hold the team accountable, and actually talk football and be honest. You know, Ten Hag's not silly. He knows behind the scenes it's not good enough. He doesn't. I'd be very shocked if he actually believes what he's saying in these post-match comments about the fact, you know, there's no, talking about 2 trophies and that's it, and not actually talking about the issues with the team. He'll know that there's issues there. So I think he needs to be more honest in his post-match interviews. I think he needs to be more open and honest with the fans, and I think he needs to recognise the fans can't have the wool pulled over their eyes. Accountability needs to be taken. So there's things that need to change, of course there is, but I do think we need to give him an opportunity with the new structure and with the signings. And, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But that's the way INEOS are going as well. But obviously, like it says, poor results will not be allowed to continue indefinitely. It then says the flip side for Ten Hag is that there are now no excuses if he cannot produce a winning team. The structure above him and below him has been upgraded, and so has the squad. If the team doesn't get results, and it has been a challenging start to the season, then there is only one change left to make. So talking about how, you know, last season there was a lot of excuses with injuries, you know, poor recruitment, you know, not having the right people in charge, not having the right people around him. Them excuses won't wash anymore. Okay, there's been stumbling blocks at the start of the season, but that won't be able to continue forever, and poor results won't wash. There will come a point where we need to see results, and we need to see results on the pitch. So that's where Erik Ten Hag is at right now in terms of INEOS in the board. And despite how frustrated a lot of fans were after the Liverpool game, and I know they were, I think the majority of people that did, you know, want Erik Ten Hag to stay, and that was the majority of the fan base, do have to give him that opportunity. Whether it will improve, I mean, the jury's out, but let's see on this one. We've got some more super chats in as well. We've got United One saying Rashford's burnout and coaching system doesn't help. I think Rashford needs to be taken out the firing line for his own good, for his own mental state, to be honest with you. I'm not, you know, making excuses for Rashford, but he's not been good for a long time. There's only so long you can play him through it. It's not working. Take him out of the firing line. Allow him to come on off the bench against tired legs and regain his confidence that way. It's not doing any favours, you know, keep starting him and keep getting so much criticism from the fan base, and a lot of, you know, criticism is deserved for a lot of players, but Rashford is getting a lot. He's fans are on his back. That substitution was booed the other day. He needs to be taken out of the starting 11, and Ten Hag as a manager has to take that responsibility. Ray Kyle says, does Erik Ten Hag hide? I don't think so. He says we're not ready, and by the looks of it, we weren't, and I've never heard of him hiding the side. We had a poor last game, and he said we should be better. I'm not saying he's hiding. I'm saying he's just talking rubbish, to be honest with you, after games. And it's not like, not everything he says, he doesn't always speak rubbish. I think in some cases, he's like, for example, when he said we aren't ready to compete for the Premier League, a lot of fans were getting on his back for that. But the fact of the matter, that is the truth. United aren't ready to compete for the Premier League. We weren't ready for the start of the season. What he said about, you know, a lot of games and a packed schedule, completely on board with all of that. But he can't come out after a game and you know, just constantly, when people challenge results and challenge the way we play, just talk about, oh, well, we wouldn't have got 2 trophies if the way of playing was so bad. Like, he needs to actually talk about his system, why it's going to work, if he still believes it is going to work, which he surely does if he's playing it every single game, what needs to improve, how come, you know, if it is down to individual errors, which he was speaking about individual errors, how does he solve that? He needs to give a more in-depth analysis. You know, Arne Slot went on Sky Sports and dismantled Erik Ten Hag's game plan within 2 minutes. And he came across actually quite likeable and spoke really well. You know, Erik Ten Hag needs to be more direct with the fan base after these games, I think. Because when you're seeing quotes come out about, you know, the signing that we are absolutely super reliable, you know, the fan base are massively relying on to get us out of the mud, basically, saying he might not be ready for a month. Even if that's the case, coming out and saying that after a game and saying you're not Harry Potter, like, it just doesn't sit right after that sort of result, in terms of we want to be hearing how we are going to fix it and how is this game plan going to work going forward and how we're going to improve. Like, I feel like there just needs to be a more honest discussion post games, because some of the comments are getting people's backs up, especially when he keeps just deflecting with the trophy comment. Obviously, I'm so happy we won them 2 trophies. There's only so many times I can say it. One of the best days of my life at Wembley when we won the FA Cup against City. I can't stand City. It was unbelievable. Everyone thought we were going to lose. It was so good, and I owe Erik Ten Hag for that, and he did such a good job. But the fact of the matter is we came 8th in the league last year. You know, we got beat 7-0 by Liverpool under Erik Ten Hag, 6-3 by City. You know, you got battered 4-0 off Palace, was it? Like, we've had some absolute batterings. We're getting hounded by opposition fans. The fan base, you know, they need something to kind of show them we are going in the right direction, and we need the manager to be open and honest with us, if I'm being honest about that. You know, people's cups do get full. But anyway, that's the situation on Erik Ten Hag. Also, just kind of going back to Kone before, I was looking at this, and it was in the Chris Wheeler article as well. And this is what he said in the article about Kone, who is coming in. Obviously, you know, Mali Youth International, who is coming under Christopher Vivell this summer. And it says it has gone under the radar of how much off-the-field care is being put into 18-year-old summer signing Kone. Confidential understands that there is a plan in place to help the highly rated Mali Youth International bed into life in England, talking about how there's been dinners arranged for him with the academy. Kone was at Carrington to watch the under-18s beat Liverpool over the weekend, and insiders noted how Marcus Rashford also came to watch, was talking to him, which, to be fair, I think was really good from Marcus Rashford, you know, going watching the youth, which is where he's come from, taking that signing under his wing. I really rated that from Marcus Rashford. It is a sign of leadership, which we have been waiting to see from Rashford, who is and should be, you know, a senior in that dressing room. He's 27 years old, unlike, you know, Gary Neville saying, you know, a young player learning his trade. I saw that quote. To be fair, I think Gary Neville meant that he'd come through the ranks, not that he was still a young player, but the quote didn't come off right. But apparently there's a lot of talk around Manchester United about how Kone could be fast-tracked into the first team, basically. He was pursued by a number of other clubs this summer, will be fast-tracked up the ranks once he's bedded into life in England. Such is his talent, but for now, he will bounce between the academy sides. So he'll be in the academy sides while he gets used to life in England, bedding in, you know, a new country, new culture, you know, settling into his new life, basically. But Manchester United expect him to be fast-tracked up the ranks. Obviously, centre defensive midfielder, it's a position that Manchester United absolutely are crying out for. We've brought Ugarte in, but it's something where we've needed to invest. And credit to Vivell and the rest of the recruitment team for this summer, noticing how short we have been in this area for a number of years, and actually going and recruiting a youth prospect who can hopefully be our answer for many years to come, eventually, when he gets time in this first team. But people need to be patient. The team needs to be patient. Erik Ten Hag needs to be patient. You know, everyone needs to be patient around this. And I saw Mark this morning talking about how Kobbie Mainoo's being overworked, overused. That's the last thing we want to be doing. We don't want to be too over-reliant on our youth. Brilliant to make this sort of signing, and it could be an absolute lifesaver for us in the future. But we need to be in a position where we already have first teamers, you know, who are top level in these positions, and players like Kone and, you know, the Mainus and the Garnachos can just slowly start to come through without the pressure and be nurtured into this team and developed in the correct way. And I do think we're overusing Kobbie Mainoo, we're overworking him. You know, the same way Barcelona have done that with their youth products, because they've been in compromising positions. Like, look at Gavi, look at Pedri, like the injuries they've had to deal with it because their bodies have been under stress at such a young age. I just don't want that to happen to Kobbie Mainoo. So as happy as I am with the, you know, the youth signings and how exciting they look, we've got to make sure that we're in a position where we can ease them into the team. We're not over-reliant, and that's something we've got to balance for sure. Grace Sheridan says, could the fan base handle Mainoo being on the bench? I think we have to. I honestly think we really, really have to, because I actually was, you know, clipping Mark up from the morning show. You know, when we put the clips out on Instagram and TikTok, I was, you know, doing that this morning, and I was watching his little segment on Kobbie Mainoo. It is on the United Stand TV Instagram if you want to go and look at that shortened clip. And he was talking about how Kobbie Mainoo is being overworked, overused, and he's obviously, you know, such a talent, but he needs to be managed, and we're just completely over-reliant on him. And I was looking at this, right? So this is England midfielders so far this season. Minutes played this season. Okay. So Declan Rice, 224 minutes played. 83% of the minutes possible played, he's played. Phil Foden, just so far this season, Phil Foden, player of the year of the whole Premier League last season. Phil Foden, guess how many minutes he's played so far this season? 45, 16.7%. Conor Gallagher, 102, 37.8%. Cole Palmer, 262, 97%. That is quite a lot, to be fair. Kobbie Mainoo, 264 minutes, 97.8%. 97.8% of potential minutes played, Kobbie Mainoo has played this season. He's played 264 minutes. You know, more than Cole Palmer, more than Conor Gallagher, loads more than Phil Foden, more than Declan Rice, and he is the youngest player there, 19 years of age, right? It shouldn't be happening like this. Kobbie Mainoo, by the way, as well, didn't even have much. He didn't have a pre-season. He was with England, you know, just like the same as the other England players, and he's been used the most. And Kobbie Mainoo, I've said this multiple times, and I'll say it again. He is one of the best talents I have seen come through Manchester United in a very long time. He is an unbelievable talent at his age. Like, I watched him when he was in the under-21s. I watched him in LA up close at Venice Beach. Like, he's incredible. He's so talented. But without a doubt, he's been overworked. He's been overused. The same way Garnacho was last season. And he's been asked to be the main man at Manchester United at 19 years of age. Everything we do has to go through him. Taking the ball off the back four in pressurising situations has to be done by Kobbie Mainoo. Winning the ball back has to be done by Kobbie Mainoo, you know, because most of the time Casemiro just dives in and gets dribbled past. You know, progressing the ball at the pitch has to be done by Kobbie Mainoo. He's left on his own multiple times. He needs to be developed properly, and this happens by managing his minutes and providing a quality midfield partner to partner with him that gets the best out of him. I mean, Ugarte, you know, he can't come in quick enough, but he still needs his minutes managed. And again, this is why I would go for Rabiot, because with Mount's injuries, with Casemiro's form, like, we need quality and depth, and we just don't have it. So Mainoo is having to play all these minutes because we just don't have any quality and depth in that midfield. And people say, you know, would the fan base be able to... I can already see comments saying fast-track Kone. Again, another player that we've just signed who needs time. He might be super talented, but he needs time, and he shouldn't have that pressure on him. It's great having these youth prospects, and it's so important for the future, but we can't be over-reliant on them. We can't run them into the ground, or else you ruin the talent. That's the last thing you want to do. Like, Kobbie Mainoo has the potential to be anything he wants to be. We need to handle him properly and handle his career with care. And people say, and people are right. If Ten Hag did put Mainoo on the bench, people would melt down. because we're so reliant on him. But this is where Mount needs to get back fit, and he needs to get back fit quickly, because Mount can play a role in helping manage Mainoo's minutes. Ugarte hopefully can, and Casemiro needs to shape up big time, because I get, this system exposes his weaknesses. I get he's not, 26 years old, 27 years old anymore, but he's a senior player who has won multiple Champions Leagues, won multiple titles. He needs to fix up big time and be an example. So, yeah, a lot for Erik Ten Hag to ponder, but I do think, the fan base need to be more accepting if Erik Ten Hag does decide to manage minutes as well, to be fair, on that side of things. Just on Casemiro quickly, in this article as well, apparently United have been trying to offload Casemiro for some time, but the 375 grand a week wages have proved to be an obstacle. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Obviously, his wages have been docked this season due to the Champions League, but still huge wages. John Murtough went out to the Middle East in December to try and gauge interest in Casemiro, but it's understood that there has been no concrete offers before the Saudi transfer window closed on Monday night. Last season, we were looking at offloading Casemiro to Saudi. This season as well, United have wanted to offload him for a while now, and you can understand why after his performance on Sunday, but there's no takers. People keep saying Saudi, Saudi, Saudi. I've spoken to Sam C reports about this. We know how good he was this transfer window. Saudi aren't interested, especially not on that wage. I mean, that's when you know you're in trouble. Like, Saudi aren't even interested because, like, the way that how far he's fallen is crazy. So he's not going to Turkey, like Mark discussed in the morning show. He is staying. Ten Hag needs to work out how to get the best out of him, and Casemiro, as a professional himself, needs to work out how he can get the best out of himself. Like, he came back, to be fair, and in the pre-season I thought he looked ripped. I thought he looked like he'd actually shredded some weight. He looked really fit. He looked really healthy, but he just isn't up to it right now, especially not in a system where it completely exposes weaknesses. It's on Erik Ten Hag to try and sort that out, but it's also on Casemiro himself being a senior professional. So that's where we're at. Last but not least, while we're on the little bit of a, talking about the youth that Christopher Vivell has signed, on the Christopher Vivell, staying at Manchester United, I thought this was interesting from the Denmark under-18s manager on Chido Obi Martin. He said his greatest competence is that he scores so many goals. If you saw some of the goals in the European Championships, he's a really good finisher and positionally good, so he gets free for them opportunities. He also is good man-to-man. He's good at running in depth in relation to getting into free positions. His finishing skills are what allows him to score many goals. So speaking super positively about him, early days yet, but great at finding space, great at making the runs, and obviously superb finisher. Another exciting talent that Christopher Vivell has brought into Manchester United this season. And there was talk about him potentially coming, third choice striker after Højlund and Xerxes this season when he gets settled in. So again, don't want to set too high expectations, but just some more of the rewards that we're reaping from having somebody like Christopher Vivell being at Manchester United, who is an expert in recruiting youth that has a lot of potential. But anyway, last but not least, Super Chat says Kassé and Ugarte double pivot must be tried out then. That should happen at some point this season, because Mainoo will need a rest. Mount has had quite a few injuries, so he will need to be managed as well. If we're trying to shut up shop, Casemiro and Ugarte is definitely something I expect us to see at some point. But look, everyone, thank you very much for watching. I mean, is there a possibility that Bruno might even get rested at some points this season? He's the captain. I think Ten Hag's playing him out of position. But with Ugarte coming in, could you play Mainoo, Ugarte and Casemiro and give Bruno a little bit of a rest? Because, again, every player needs to be managed to keep them fresh. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Will Ten Hag ever actually move Bruno backwards a little bit to fill that hole in the midfield? Stay tuned to find out, everyone. But look, guys, thank you for watching. Absolutely love that show. Talking about Ten Hag, talking about the transfer boosting Christopher Vivell. It's really good to kind of get your teeth into that information and bring some quality news and information to you guys on a 2 p.m, especially in the international break. So hit a like on the video. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate all the comments and the super chats coming in. Stay tuned. Any breaking news, we will bring it to you. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I will see you on the next one.